Hello, friends. The Myth of Normal by Gabor Mate. It unpacks why chronic disease and mental illness are on the rise. Western medicine focuses on individual pathologies, but what if the key actually lies in our culture? Things we consider normal, like stress, adversity, and trauma, are often toxic and breed disease. The book is revolutionary and urgent exploration of the causes and consequences of illness in our society and how we can heal ourselves and our world by reconnecting with our true selves. The book challenges the conventional understanding of normal as a false and harmful concept that neglects the roles of trauma, stress, and the pressures of modern day living on our bodies and minds. So, let us start the audiobook summary. The Myth of Normal.
Key point 1. Stop normalizing abnormal. 60% of American adults suffer from chronic diseases like diabetes and high blood pressure. How is this number even possible in a world with such advanced medicine and healthcare systems? People today recognize the importance of well-being more than ever before. Find proof of it in various advertisements for fitness courses, diets, and psychological workshops. And yet, the statistics of general welfare leave much to be desired. There is no need to make groundbreaking discoveries to find what afflicts society. Look around. The environment and culture determine your inner world. Whether you have a toxic family, endure bullying or racism, or take emotional and physical abuse, your body will reflect all these experiences. A disease does not appear out of thin air, demanding immediate attention. It is usually an outgoing process triggered by a traumatic event. Illness is the byproduct of existence under toxic and unhealthy conditions. The sad reality is people rarely notice a correlation between soul wounds and illnesses. Even worse, they turn a blind eye to disturbing things or end up normalizing them. They go against their natural needs and, instead of addressing the issue, they get used to it. Once faced with the disease, people start thinking of it as an enemy. They start battling and fighting the illness, hating every moment they are in a hospital or taking medicine. Being sick is undoubtedly unpleasant. Being away from family and seeing other people relish their lives might affect their mental health. But the disease can also be enlightening. It can make you contemplate things you didn't consider before or reevaluate your life principles. This summary will reveal the truth about the suffering that surroundings can inflict on people and how to deal with them. It can be helpful information for people willing to break the chain of chronic illnesses and addictions. Key point 2. The universal experience of trauma. Psychologists state that trauma can form in the earliest stages of development, long before a person can fully comprehend their surroundings or articulate their feelings. In one experiment, doctors observed 10 infants whose mothers left them for some time. When the mothers returned, the babies demonstrated detachment. They refused to look at their moms, cried, and pulled away. Considering how dependent infants are on their caregivers, this behavior seemed unusual. But the message the babies wanted to pass on to their mothers was, "I don't want to go through this stress anymore, so I will detach from you." Parent-kid separation marks the psyche, manifesting as the fear of abandonment in the future adult relationship. Trauma is an inner wound that appears as a reaction to something distressing and painful. Just like an actual cut, it may stay raw or become a scar. In both cases, it will make itself known again during stressful situations and bring about unpleasant flashbacks. Many assume traumatic experiences include only natural disasters, wars, or terrible insults, but this notion is much broader. Almost every person falls under the influence of cultural, economic, or political uncertainties, and it is impossible to stay utterly unbothered by such events. Typically, there are two types of trauma. Capital T trauma results mainly from life-threatening situations, for example, sexual assault or a horrific road accident. It triggers severe conditions like chronic diseases and mental disorders. Small t trauma stems from personal hardships, such as bullying at school or stormy family relationships. A lack of affection or acceptance from parents can add to the damage. Although this type is not as harmful as capital T trauma, it can still wreak havoc. Once traumatized, people tend to lose connection with their bodies. To escape reality, they neglect their physical part, disregard the fatigue or stress they feel, and ignore hunger or thirst. Sometimes it becomes a superpower. They might perform under pressure for a long time without visible exhaustion. Still, completely ignoring the body's voice is unacceptable. You might miss the obvious signs of health issues. In a hazardous situation, a person might follow 3 scenarios: flight, in other words, run away; fight, or freeze. The first 2 options are optimal for survival. In the freeze mode, though, the body does not respond to danger signals and stays still. This state prevails if the person has unresolved trauma. Key point 3. The strong tie between body and mind. Modern medicine has only recently embraced the concept of body and mind unity, but psychosomatics has always been a well-known concept for traditional healers. It's a gut feeling that dictates to people that their thoughts and emotions can enormously impact their health. One German study confirmed that certain personality traits could predispose individuals to illness, namely female breast cancer. Those qualities were altruism and avoidance of confrontation. Nurses dealing with cancer patients could almost unmistakably predict who had a diagnosis. They claimed that such people were too nice. All this evidence proves that the suppression of emotions can set inner processes in motion, in most cases with unfortunate consequences. There's a tendency among relatives of soldiers who died during war to suffer from blood and lung cancer. But grief is not the cause of such a calamity. It's how these people address their sadness. Instead of sitting with this emotion, they try to hide it deep inside. Stress is another factor that can deteriorate well-being. It forces you to act and survive in a dangerous situation. However, if stress is chronic and you cannot shake it off, consider it a bad influence which can provoke inflammation, diabetes, and vascular diseases. Another scientific breakthrough discovered that the human body does not act independently. Its well-being depends significantly on other people's emotional and physical states. It contradicts the common belief that every person is unique and might separate from others if necessary. For example, children are more likely to have lung issues and asthma if they grow up in a dysfunctional family. Any change in a parent's mood or emotional health can affect their child's hormonal levels. Illnesses can reflect personal discomfort and social issues. There are many cases of asthma among those who endure racial discrimination. This tendency is alarming among Black American women. In Scotland, researchers detected a higher level of inflammation among the population during mass unemployment. A low-paid and demanding job is even worse. According to Australian scientists, those who get stuck in a toxic working environment put their mental health at risk. Did you know? Married people or those with a lifelong partner tend to have lower mortality than singles. That statement is only valid if the marriage is happy. Key point 4. Break the pattern of unhealthy parenting. Individuals have 2 bare essentials: the need for attachment and authenticity. The former is a synonym for closeness. People strive to be emotionally and physically intimate with each other. Babies express this wish by crying to signal they need attention. In a gruesome scenario, when the mother neglects her baby throughout their childhood, the child is more likely to grow up broken, transferring their pain into their relationships with others. Authenticity is the ability to express your true self freely. Imagine a little boy misbehaving, running around the house, jumping on the couch, and yelling. A classic response from some parents would be, "Nice kids do not act like this." They want to tame their rebellious child and show disapproval of their actions. Some experts even recommend putting the kid into a timeout if the toddler is angry or overreacting. In terms of parental emotional state, this technique is powerful. No one has to deal with the child's hurricane of emotions, and communication gets delayed until they've calmed down. But, in such a way, parents create boundaries inside the child's mind. They know that someone will love them only if they are obedient and quiet. But here comes the conflict of needs. How can the child satisfy their needs for closeness and acceptance simultaneously if they are lovable only under certain conditions? Once faced with this dilemma, many individuals unconsciously choose attachment and struggle with their true identity. What they believe to be their authentic qualities are, in fact, artificially created traits, the ones that make them appropriate to their surroundings. The most common form shame assumes in this culture is the belief that I am not enough. Gabor Mate, MD. Parents have to accept children for who they are. It doesn't mean that they should allow their kids to misbehave or have total freedom. After all, there must be some limits. It's more about guaranteeing that even with flaws and imperfections, kids are welcome to be authentic. They can cry, be angry, tired, or be radiantly happy. It is the basis of mental and emotional stability for kids. Do not force kids to grow up. Let them stay in touch with their imaginative reality and be playful. Key point 5. Protect pregnant women at all costs. Indigenous tribes believed that angry or sad people should not go near a pregnant woman. Nowadays, medical research can affirm this superstition. All the negative things a woman experiences during childbearing will inevitably disturb her baby. For instance, problems at work cause extreme stress. In some workplaces, pregnancy is undesirable because women feel pressured to perform at the same level as their colleagues. As soon as the woman becomes pregnant, she must shift her mental focus to the baby. But knowing how hectic the world is, it is almost impossible. Everyone stresses about finances, environmental issues, and social or personal problems. The baby's father can also project negative emotions or get stuck in depression. The baby feels any turbulence within the family. To prove this happens, scientists listened to the heartbeats of babies whose mothers went through emotional crises and found that they significantly differed from the results of healthy participants. This type of stress may even have adverse outcomes in the future, such as learning and behavioral disorders. Modern medical practices turned giving birth into a highly regulated, strict, and complex procedure. It's one of the most meaningful moments in a mother's life, but most of the time, women don't have a say in what ultimately happens. Statistics show that C-sections exceed 40%, yet doctors should use this method only in emergencies. Some physicians impose their vision of labor and ignore the intuitive feelings of future mothers. People should not consider labor a terrifying process. It's a celebration of life and alignment with nature. Once in labor, mammals look for a quiet and dark place. Mothers-to-be also need peace and solitude. But instead, they get surrounded by doctors and nurses talking loudly and fussing around. Some women have negative experiences with hospital staff. In 2019, 42% of women reported they experienced abuse from nurses, both physical and emotional. Women should be privileged to choose the most optimal method of giving birth, whether a home birth with a midwife, in a tub, or at the hospital. Mothers always know better, as they are closest to their babies and, more often than not, can sense any issue arising. Key point 6. Demystifying addiction. People tend to see those who suffer from addiction in a negative light. It's a common assumption that these individuals choose to be addicts and have the power to break free, but they don't want to. Another take on addiction is the belief that it is a disease that happens on a biochemical level. These points overlook the underlying principle of the intense need for alcohol, drugs, or whatever else a person is addicted to. Addiction is a coping mechanism people use to stay away from their previous traumas mentally. Of course, it doesn't come down to only alcohol or drugs. People might get too enthusiastic about computer games, shopping, or pornography. Any behavior or habit that spirals out of control can fall under the umbrella of addiction. Considering the deadly nature of addiction, it's worth exploring why so many individuals fall into its trap. It may happen for different reasons. Under the influence, some individuals find it easier to communicate with strangers and make friends. Shy and reserved people might become relaxed and confident, excellent qualities to attract attention. Some who take drugs describe a delightful feeling of warmth inside. Others claim that substances mute gloomy thoughts in their heads and bring peace. It's clear that addicts try to fight their inner demons. They seek missing pieces of their identity lost somewhere in their childhood or adolescence. Statistics can back up this theory. People who have experienced abuse have twice the chance of developing an addiction. The three main hallmarks of addiction are short-term relief or pleasure, and therefore craving, long-term suffering for oneself or others, and an inability to stop. Gabor Mate, MD. People who hesitate to have children as they fear passing on any generational addiction can sigh with relief. No gene can trigger an obsession with alcohol, drugs, or sex. A lack of love, acceptance, and harmony pushes people into these extremes. The addictive condition can help produce dopamine, the transmitter that makes the world seem thrilling and colorful. A toxic environment can depress the level of these chemicals inside the brain, hence such a strong desire to take a drug or get drunk. Conclusion. No matter the trauma's severity, there is always a chance for healing. It starts with accepting the truth. You should acknowledge all the pain you have gone through, all the mistakes that have led you the wrong way, and all the things in the past that didn't turn out how you imagined. Don't let self-blame or self-pity immerse you. These feelings are the main roadblocks to recovery. Although healing might not free you from physical illnesses and disorders, it will soothe your mind and help you find the lost paths of your true self. The healing journey is a very individual process. There are no particular rules for doing it. The only guide is your heart. However, pursuing these 4 A's can help you outline your path. Authenticity. Stop adhering to societal norms and standards of behavior. Your negative qualities remain integral to you, so don't be embarrassed. Just relax and be genuine. Agency. Instead of accepting the general understanding of good and bad, successful and miserable, listen to your inner voice. Don't be afraid to make whatever choices you want in life. Anger. Whenever you feel like someone is stepping over your boundaries, allow yourself to be angry. Healthy anger is not drama or hysteria, but a normal reaction to outrageous things. Acceptance. Don't try to hide or reject uncomfortable experiences or feelings. Instead, face them. Mourn your losses or failures as long as needed. The pain will gradually disappear. Try this. Constantly remind yourself that your thoughts are not reality. Whether you consider yourself incompetent, unworthy, or not enough, all these statements are just shenanigans of your mind, dictated by previous traumas.